everybody. I'd like to start by saying thank you. I had a bit of paper, yeah. I do have a bit of paper with a few notes on it. I'd like to start really by saying thank you to Margo and Sean and the team here, not just for inviting me to be part of this, because I think it's a brilliant show, and not because of the curation, because of the combination of the great space and the artwork in that space. I've seen some of this artwork in other locations. I've never seen it look so good. I think that's fair. In fact, the painting's just behind Margo. We hung about a year and a half ago in Kilmainham Jail, and they look good there, but there they had to compete with the weight of history. Here, they're in an art space, and just that's so exciting, isn't it? Anyway, I wanted to, really start by saying this whole project was my first time in the Esker Arts Centre, and I'm lost in admiration for it, and really very sorry that a lot of other places that I go to do projects in don't have an Esker Arts Centre. And if you could throw in the team that goes with it, you'd be in heaven. But anyway, maybe that's going a bit too far. Yeah. So Margo's work, which I'm going to talk about for the rest of the time, I've known Margo's work now. I was trying to add it up on the train coming down here today. I think for about 20 years, Margo, knowing single pieces in group shows. It always spelled ACL to me. Now it's spelling painting and print, much more, although it's also all about ACL, but we'll get to that. It's also about print and painting. And of course, that's where the art takes over from the heritage and it forms a balance. But I'm looking at the projects that I have known most that Margo created over the years. The first one that we got talking to each other seriously about was an exhibition about work from her family's personal archives, and it's recorded and documented in a little book out on show upstairs, I think, in the foyer. It's called Archive, and it was about things that the family had collected over the years that were sacred to the family and the story of one family member in particular. And I remember, although the story is called Archive, what Margo talked about when she talked about it was about secrets, things that the family attached great importance to, but nobody actually spoke the story of what lay behind these valued and cherished objects. Then her next project was, I was asked to curate the Mayo Collaborative response to the 1916 commemorations, and thank you, I see John McHugh is here as well. John was heavily involved as one of the brains behind that, but Margo was again involved in that. And then the next thing that I knew about her was that she was invited by the Jackie Clark Museum in our library in Ballina to create a show relating to some of the objects in the library and wherever they led her. So she put on an exhibition called Keepsakes. So once again, we're talking about things that carry memory and that are important for people as individuals. And then she persuaded Kilmainham Jail to allow her to put on an exhibition of her work in Kilmainham Jail. That show was called Voices, and it was to give a voice to all the women prisoners in Kilmainham Jail. But you can see the drift, can't you? We're going from secrets in an archive to keepsakes that are in public ownership to a show called Voices. And now we're here, okay? And this show is called From the Earth, and it diffuses all those collective threads out into the landscape and brings it all back again to the artist. So we're down here, and I arrived on Tuesday morning to a huge collection of artwork, it seemed, stacked up against the walls, and two beautiful but formidable spaces. And, you could do a show down here that is one half or is differently themed to the rest of the show, or you could do a show upstairs. Yeah, the two could be quite separate, or you could try to make it a free-flowing thing that goes between the two. But then if you're to do the free-flowing thing, and that's what we opted for, and the space really lent itself to it, I'm delighted to say, Then we had to think as well about all the different strands in Margot's work. And I'm thinking particularly now about the things that are new in it. So for me, what was new, maybe not for some of you, but for me, what was new is the emphasis on painting. I really knew her, I thought I knew her print work inside out, but now I'm finding the painting. And of course, the painting is compromised or challenged or actually really complemented enormously by the printmaking, because she doesn't leave either one alone. She mixes the two of them so that you get painting on top of screen printing a bit, overlapping on top of painting with a touch-up of painting on top of that again. In other words, you're getting layers. And that brings me right back to the title of this exhibition, and back to Achill, and back to, you know, all of us who carry layers of memories and layers of, I suppose memories. Let's leave it at memories for the minute. But the quotation that she used from Heinrich Böll, and I'm not going to quote it, but it's called, the show is called From the Earth, and it refers to the earth behaving like a cushion for the relics or the bones that lie on top of it. It provides a cushion of moss and grass. A welcome cushion, but it conceals all kinds of things as well, and it blurs the edges of the history, and where do we go from there? So while I'm thinking about all of this, I'm also thinking about the writer Annie Ernaux. I think I referred to her before when talking about Margot's work. The French writer Annie Ernaux talks about memory not just about the things that happened that you remember, but memory in a much more creative way. She says memory is about imagination. It's about the things that you created along the way. It's about the imagined memories that you had, or the memories that you have of a real place, i.e. Achill and the deserted village and all the other places that inhabit Margot's work, but also the memories and the dreams and the thoughts that she brought with her to those places at the time that she was thinking about them. So memory has all of these things grafted onto it. In other words, it's like the landscape. It's like the grass and the moss, and it's all a great, big, complicated web of things that we can't begin to disentangle, okay? So I'm thinking about that, and then the day after I went back from here, actually, on Thursday, I happened to be at a talk given by a younger artist who teaches in NCAD called Jenny Mullarney. But Jenny Mullarney has made her career out of hospitality. She says hospitality is all about inclusion and sharing. And she was aware when you think about hospitality and food and going into people's houses, she said if it ever feels as if the host or the hostess is the host or hostess, they've already lost it. You know, they should never feel like that. They should make you feel as if you are as empowered in their home, at their table, as they are themselves. And she likened all of that to the landscape, which made me think, you know, we're back in the same spot all over again, except that she was thinking in a very urban, domesticated way, whereas Margot is embracing the wild Atlantic. Okay, Jenny Mullarney did give me some notes that she had written, and one that jumped out at me was her saying that art is the story of how we survived. So it might not be about all the nuances or the special things, it's the story of how we survived. And in particular, because she's thinking of those small, seemingly unimportant moments, she's thinking about the story of the moments that exist between the moments that are important. So when you look at the histories we've been talking about, like 1916 and Margot's commemoration of that, or her uncle and his story from Achill, we're probably thinking of the big moments, but the small moments are the ones that are represented by the shards of pottery, by the paintings that hung on the wall, or a bit of needlecraft here, or a bit of something else there, you know, hand-carved cross, or a, you know, St. Bridget's cross, something like that. All of these occur in Margot's work, and they all bring us back to that, in her case, that experience in Achill, but for all the rest of us, our own experience, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. There are no boundaries to contain it. I suppose that's what I like about this exhibition. But then the other thing, it's one of the things I like about it. Another one that I like that was a complete discovery for me was the wall of portraits upstairs. I don't know if any of you have seen them yet, but there are all these portraits that Margo had been doing, and we talked about whether they should be in the show or not. And Margo told me they're just the warm-up exercises that she did every day to just limber up, to get into the right zone for painting the moments that are the big moments. So if you like, I think those really spontaneous portraits are the moments between the important moments, but they are also incredibly revealing and uplifting and thoughtful and soul-searching and honest. They're a whole range of things. And so, of course, that wall of portraits had to stay. I wish we had the space for more of them, but you get a flavour of what we're talking about by seeing those. And there is one here on the wall beside Lee. This one has a title, and I've forgotten the title.
I think it's self-portrait.
Self-portrait. I thought it had something more dreamy about it. But in a way, it is about exactly what Jenny Moran and Annie Arno are talking about. That portrait is about memory and what you see being all this other accumulation of things that is part of our psyche and our emotional development. So I really think that this is an amazing show. I was so honoured to have been asked to have anything to do with it. And congratulations on Esker for being such a correct place to show it in, actually. And I haven't said a word about the Kilmainham jail work or about the video work or about something that I love upstairs. There's a little bunch of works that maybe don't quite belong in the same way that everything else does, except that everything belongs. They are 6 small paintings that were made in response to a commission to make a work in response to a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. And of course, they are the landscape of the area again anyway, but they are given, they're given the Edgar Allan Poe treatment. They're given that slightly different feel, but it is all about what the landscape holds, And some days it holds the very things that Edgar Allan Poe couldn't speak of. Nevermore is the refrain running through it. So something happened, and the bird doesn't want it to happen again, but it's contained in the landscape. And then there are other things that we want to celebrate over and over and over again. And it's all about Achill, so I'll just finish on Achill. I kept asking myself, how come all the work that I know about Margo McNulty is about the west of Ireland? It's nearly all Achill, but some of it, allows itself to leak across into Roscommon or somewhere. But, most of it is very much about where we come from, where we're going to, where we belong. And none of it, even though the deserted village is all over it and the tower and a couple of other landmarks that people from Achill would know, none of it is so explicit that it excludes all the rest of us who didn't grow up in Achill. But it does make you feel that actually growing up in Achill was really something special, at least at the time that Margo grew up there, because it had all of this richness and sense of community and connection to all of the things I've been talking about. The wider national history, the literature, the atmosphere, and of course the things that are, accumulated under the soil, under the cushions of grass and moss. I think it's a fabulous exhibition. Can I say one more time how privileged I felt to be asked to share it, and say it's just a great pleasure to open it. Thank you. Thank you.